going on, guys? Welcome to part 2 of my NFL 2024-25 predictions. In the last intro, I said it was going to be every single team. Did not know that it was going to run for that long. It would have ended up being like 40 minutes. So I split it up into two 20-ish minute parts. So not much of an introduction. Thanks for coming back and watching another video on the channel. But let's just jump right into it. Here are my NFC 2024-2025 NFL record predictions. In the NFC North, starting with the Detroit Lions. Detroit was a team that I almost hit right on the head with an 11-6 record prediction last year. They went 12-5, and what I was not expecting was for them to be in the NFC Championship against the 49ers and take them to the end of the game. Their offense was on fire last year, but their pass defense was their only real weak spot. They addressed the secondary in the draft and in free agency. So if Dan Campbell and the Motor City Kitties, shout out Pat Pitts, shout out Stadium Rant, should be in good shape to be a top contender in the NFC. I have the Lions once again finishing at 12-5. Next, let's look at the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love silenced a lot of critics last season when the Packers went on and finished at 9-8 and decimated the Cowboys in the wild card round. He got a fat ass paycheck from the Packers in the offseason, and it looks like they're on their way to being contenders in the next few years. They finished in the top half in both offense and defense last year, and they upgraded at a few positions as well. Josh Jacobs should be an upgrade from Aaron Jones, but after him, there are some injury concerns. A.J. Dillon is already out for the season with a neck injury, and Marshawn Lloyd was dealing with injuries all throughout camp and in preseason. So there's not a lot of depth at the position, but if Josh Jacobs can stay healthy and produce, I think they'll be fine. On defense, Xavier McKinney should be a big playmaker at safety, and I think that they're in a good spot, but they play in a division with the Lions and a seemingly improving Bears team. And they do have some tough out-of-division games as well. Green Bay should find themselves back in the playoffs and finishing with a 10-7 record. Despite all that, Green Bay should still find themselves getting back into playoffs though, and I have them finishing with a 10-7 record. All right, Bears fans, you've been waiting 3 years for this. Just from me, you've been waiting for praise. They did better than I thought they would last season. Yes. They did more in one offseason for a quarterback that they hadn't even drafted than they did for the entirety of Justin Fields' tenure there. Their defense did step up after that trade for Montez Sweat last year, and all of a sudden, there is hope in Chicago. We'll see how the new combination of a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator, we'll see how the combination of a new offensive coordinator and Caleb Williams goes. And I think they'll improve and be a good team, but success will not be immediate. The Bears will finish at 8-9. And now we have the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings were unable to recreate the success that was the anomaly of that 13-win season a couple years ago. And that was in part to Kirk Cousins missing a lot of last year due to injury. Now he's completely out of the picture. And even though they drafted J.J. McCarthy to kind of heal that wound, he's also out for the year too. And now they're left with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has done nothing to prove to me that he can lead a team to a good winning season. Even with that decent defense, this team is going to struggle to find themselves in the win column, and I have them finishing at 5-12. Now let's head to the NFC East with the Philadelphia Eagles. I was hyping the shit out of the Eagles last season, and they were a great team until the end of the year where they started to fall apart. They dropped 5 of their last 6 games before losing in the wild card to the Buccaneers. Their defense was getting torched left, right, and center, and they found themselves with one of the worst passing defenses in the league. That defense was the focal point of their attention in the offseason, both in the draft and free agency. Of course, they got Saquon Barkley, and the offense won't be the problem. If the defense steps up, they should find themselves atop the NFC once again, but I do have them going 10-7. Now let's talk about the boys, the Cowboys. The Cowboys are in a bit of a weird spot going into this year. After that old-fashioned ass whooping by the Packers in the wild card round, they're looking at a different team. My expectations are lower for them. The lack of a run game was shown to be a problem in a lot of their games last year. And now, their starting running back, Tony Pollard, is out in Tennessee. Rico Dowdle and a returning Zeke are going to lead the way for this committee running back room. But aside from that and the CeeDee Lamb saga, there's not a lot to talk about for the Cowboys offseason because Jerry doesn't really like to partake in that time of year. They did bring in Mike Zimmer to replace Dan Quinn, though, and I think that they'll still be able to produce through the air. And the defense and run game are a big fat question mark for me, especially after Deron Bland is injured and announced to miss the season. They'll take a step back this year, but still have a winning record at 9-8. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are entering another new era with a new coach in Dan Quinn and a new quarterback with Jaden Daniels. I like some of the moves that they made on the defensive side of the ball this offseason because adding anybody, old or young, will help out this squad that was the worst defense in the league. They should improve on both sides of the ball, but not enough to the point where you'll be seeing any significant contention. They'll finish this ensuing season of their rebuild at 6-11. And now we have the New York Giants. I can't believe I had this team winning 10 games last year. Surely they're regretting Daniel Jones's contract extension, and their O-line is plain and simple terrible. They managed to snag Brian Burns in the offseason, but aside from him, a few guys on the front seven, and Malik Neighbors, there's not a ton of bright spots on this team. The clock is about to strike midnight on Danny Dimes and in his time in New York, and I think I'm okay with that because there's rumors going around he's talking to Kay Adams, and I'm not okay with that. I'm not expecting a lot, and they're going to finish at 5-12. Now let's go to the NFC West, starting with the San Francisco 49ers. I'm just going to get this one out of the way. San Francisco, the city, sucks ass. And I hope that Ricky Pearsall gets well soon. That's a terrible situation. It's really sad when you read into the details of it. The story of him talking to the cop that was helping him out, or the medic that was helping him out. Super sad situation, so I wanted to put that out there. I hope he comes back fully healthy and is able to play this season. He's had a rough offseason. Pretty long summer for this guy. But now, let's look at the 49ers. Let's look at their season. We all know that they lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in a rare time that I was rooting for the 49ers. They added some pieces on defense in free agency to fill the holes that Eric Armstead's departure and Dre Greenlaw's injury have made. But the 49ers are going to be good again. I think we can all agree on that, and I don't see any significant change record-wise. I have them finishing at 13-4. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams, a team that I was snoozing on last season. But they came out and put up a pretty damn good year. The offense was way better than I imagined, with players standing out that I was not expecting either. Players like Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams leading the way. They should be able to see similar production this year, but one thing that I can't help but squint at is Kyron Williams returning punts for the Rams. Maybe we could see Blake Corum getting additional touches because of that reason, but that could mean nothing, or that could mean exactly what I'm thinking. They made moves on defense. Trey White, Darius Williams, and Cameron Curl are all guys that I like to help out that secondary, and the D-line was addressed in the draft too. I know that they were dealing with O-line concerns throughout the offseason and into the preseason. I'm not sure how that's going right now, but regardless, I have them finishing at 9-8. Next, we have the Arizona Cardinals, a team that finished around where I expected. Not quite the worst team in the league, but still a top 5 pick range. I like the direction that they're headed with this rebuild. They have a nice duo in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray coming up. Nice weapons on the offense with Connor and McBride, and a continuously improving offensive line. They aim to improve their defense with their 2 picks following Harrison Jr. and a couple adds in free agency. They'll do better this season because they're going to have a full season, hopefully, out of Kyler Murray rather than 8 games. I have them improving to a 7-10 record. Finished out the division, we have the Seattle Seahawks. I'm honestly not sure how to evaluate this team. It's kind of a similar scenario to the Patriots. They're going into the first head coaching change that they've had in over 10 years. With Pete Carroll retiring and Mike McDonald taking over, a team that wasn't great last season just leaves me with a big old question mark. What I can say, though, is that, again, I don't have a ton of faith in Geno Smith this year. But he should do good enough because he has weapons around him like DK, like JSN, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. The defense can hopefully make an improvement with the additions that they made, but I'm not expecting playoffs. I have them finishing at 7-10. And the final division, the NFC South, starting with the Atlanta Falcons. Unfortunately, the Falcons look like the favorite to win this division. They have a new coaching staff under Raheem Morris, which means the offense could see a lot more success and production from guys like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. And it's not only because Zach Robinson coming over from the Rams being their passing game coordinator, but it's because they actually have a quarterback. Kirk Cousins should get the best out of his talent. Now, it may be naive of me to think that Kyle Pitts is going to break out this year because of Kirk Cousins, but if you look at the majority of Cousins' career, in his time in Washington and in his time in Minnesota, majority of the time, tight ends were able to produce and have pretty good seasons. On defense, they addressed the pass rush issue by trading for Matt Judon. They have great pieces in the secondary. I do think that they overpaid AJ Terrell a little bit, but they do have Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, and him. I don't know how Raheem Morris is going to do in his first season as head coach, but I am confident in this team. I do hope they suck. I hope that this confidence is all misplaced, but I do have them finishing at 10-7. So now we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Perhaps I disrespected the Bucs last year. Had them finishing with an abysmal record, but they did well. And I do enjoy seeing Baker succeed. Granted, I wish it was on another team, probably just in the AFC. This season, I do think he will show that he deserved this contract extension. I think it's still a safe bet to say that Mike Evans is going to hit 1,000 yards. He is aging, so maybe we'll see the streak end, but they still have offensive weapons outside of him. Chris Godwin, if healthy, Cade Otton, Rashad White, and rookie Jalen McMillan. Also, want to shout out Oregon and their rookie running back, Bucky Irving. But that's it. They added to their O-line and a defense and their defense should hold up this year again like it did last year. I do think that they're going to finish around the same record though. I have them finishing at 9-8. So here it is. We are here at the New Orleans Saints. My New Orleans Saints. I got their record right last year, but my God, was it a challenge to watch this team? Their O-line did not help at all until about the last 5 weeks of the season, which went hand in hand with Derek Carr, and he had his best performances in the last 5 games of the season. They went in and got Talisi Fuaga in the draft, but I still think that this O-line is going to struggle. Also on the offense, they have a new OC. Good riddance Pete Carmichael, and New Orleans welcomes in Clint Kubiak with open arms. However, I'm not confident in their run game, And while that means I am more confident in the pass game, I am still not going to get ahead of myself. I think this is a team that's going to rely on the defense. It made some decent additions with Willie Gay joining the linebacker core with Demario Davis and Pete Werner, but their pass rush still may be an issue. Aging Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson, who had some great games last year, rotating most likely with Chase Young. I'm not as optimistic this year. I have them going 7-10. Now we have our final team of the video, the Panthers. I said the Panthers would go 6-11 last year, and some of their fans were saying, I don't know ball. And you're right. I don't know ball. I gave them too much credit. Now, after being the worst team in the league, they go into the season with their fourth head coach in about 5 years, and hopefully Dave Canales can have a longer tenure than Frank Reich and Matt Rule did, but, he does have a low bar to hit. Heading into the season under this new coaching regime, the Panthers beefed up their defensive line not only to replace or fill the hole that Brian Burns left, but to try and slow down a run game. On the other side of the trenches, they upgraded their offensive line to hopefully help give Bryce Young some time and not let him get sacked 62 times this year. Speaking of Young, he got some new weapons to try and boost his production because this offense was bottom of the barrel last year. Their roster is more appealing overall, but in this still beginning of the rebuild stage, there's kind of a dent left in there by not having the first overall pick despite being the worst team in the league and only winning 2 games. And that is going to slow this down. They'll be a better team. They'll be more competitive. I still think that Carolina is one of the hardest places to play for some reason. You can look at their games. It kind of showed that. But I do have them, maybe harsh, at a 3-14 record. So those were my 2024-2025 NFC record predictions. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree, if I disrespected your team. Let me know all down in the comments below. I'm excited for this season, but I won't lie, pretty tired because I've been doing a lot of grinding to get all of this stuff out before the season. Once we get into it, it's going to be a lot of fun. So until the next video, which is probably, I have a live stream Wednesday. This is probably coming out that day. And then I've got my week 1 predictions, and I might throw in some award predictions as well. But until then, see you later.